Hi, hello. It's Michelle Lloyd here, founder of United Art Space, and I am back for workshop 2 of Making Art Your Living. Back in my studio, the Wi-Fi is working, so I'm back. Hope you're all well. I just want to say thank you so much for all the amazing comments from workshop 1. It's been incredible. It's been the best, biggest workshop I've ever run. In fact, there were that many comments on the last video that Facebook stopped me from commenting because it thought I was a spammer replying to everyone. So if I didn't get back to your comment, please don't be offended. It's because there were so many comments and Facebook did stop me in the end, but I will do my best to get to everyone, but please don't be offended if you didn't get a reply from me. So I can see everyone hopping on, wonderful. So I'm going to do a quick recap on video 1, so workshop 1. So we talked about there never been a better time to be an artist than now, especially with everyone being on social media. And in fact, one of the biggest questions I'm being asked right now is, how do I sell on social media? And this is what we're going to cover in this workshop. So we also talked about how mindset is crucial. And a lot of people have started to see that already from workshop 1. And I've been told by so many people how it's just brought so much awareness to how people are feeling, and it can upset you. And I've had a few people message me just saying, I've been upset by this because it's made me realize that I've been getting in my own way, and that's normal. I've had that so many times when I've run these, but the thing is, you're identifying it now and you can work through it. So we've pressed the reset button. We'll try to. I know it's difficult. And there was a worksheet included in workshop 1. Those who are signed up get access to the worksheet. So if you're not signed up, you can do that at the top via the link, and the link will send you the link to the worksheets. And that was really starting to dig into why you make art, and to really get you thinking about choosing that one piece of artwork that we will use throughout the rest of the workshops. So if you haven't seen the first video, if you're watching the replay, I would watch that first video first because this one won't make sense. But if you're just joining, feel free to stay now and then go back and watch video 1, workshop 1 afterwards. So in this workshop, I'm going to talk about how we'll take that one artwork on a journey and how you can lay the foundations to finally understand how you reach your people, that you are good enough. Everything that I teach here will start to help you with pricing, how to convert people into sales, how to approach galleries. So I am really excited to share the next ingredients, and I know there's a bit of a glare there, that's off my light, so just ignore that big weird circle. I don't know if you can see properly because it's quite far away. These are the 7 keys. If I get a bit closer. I did send you this copy in worksheet 1, so you have got a copy of them. But today we are going to look at the next keys. So we looked at mindset and why, and we're going to be looking more at why, what, and who in this video. And what we're doing, it's laying the foundation so that we have a sustainable art practice. We're not looking for quick overnight success, because in my experience, people that have quick overnight success, and it does happen, it really generally fizzles out. It's because they've tapped into a trend, something was popular, and then it fizzles out. This is going to grow you a sustainable practice and give you foundations. So when things do go wrong, because in life they will, you will come back to this and you'll be able to learn how to re-navigate. So if you don't know where to put your work, how to price it, how to talk about it, it makes you feel out of your depth. And then you'll come up with reasons why you don't want to do this anymore. And I've spoken to lots of artists over the years that are a little bit scared of the other side of being an artist because they're happiest making. And I know that if you feel like that, it's so common. Every artist feels like that. And there becomes a point where you think, I don't want this to take away my creativity, and it won't. This helps make it fun. And I'm not saying it is easy. It's still challenging, but this is drawing out what makes you happy as an artist, finding your voice, finding your people, which is my mantra. And when you start to dig into your why and your what, I'm going to talk about what the what is in a moment. It not only lights the fire of passion inside of you, which opens up a whole new world, it helps you make art that makes you happy, that you're proud of it, that's an extension of yourself. And it also helps you connect and build relationships between you and your people. And this applies to people that are already selling. So if you're pivoting because of recent changes, we return back to this framework. I return back to this all the time because it is effectively a business plan. I don't advertise that because business plan just scares the life out of people. But this is effectively what it is, but I've written it in artist speak and have created it for artists. But it is a business plan. So you return to this when you need to renavigate. So it alleviates lots of confusion. When you start to carve out your own place in the world and you struggle with pricing and talking, this will help you start to raise your chances of getting your work in front of the right people, connecting with them, and it saves you time and a lot of trial and error. There still is an element of trial and error, but rather than stabbing in the dark, this gives you more structure and more direction. So we've got a lot to cover. There is a worksheet included with recap summary, but you might want to take some notes as we go along. And there is a lot to cover. So if you feel overwhelmed, please don't judge that on, I can't do this, because I've had lots of people who've taken this time and time again that say it really does start to cement. So this is a lot to take on if you're new to this, but remember, if you feel overwhelmed, go back to the phrase, find my voice, find my people. That's all you're doing. Simplify it. So I mentioned in workshop 1 that one of the biggest mistakes I see artists make is they make the work and then they jump right down to the how. So the how is down here. I'm not sure if you can see that. So that's number 6. And there are these foundational steps in between that start to help you answer the questions. And another mistake I see artists make is understanding who their work is for. So they jump into where do I put the work before they've even figured out, well, who is it for? And they go onto social media and create profiles without understanding who they are trying to appeal to. And I'm sure you've probably asked the question before, why is it that some artists selling work on social media for thousands, and then some are just selling for a few dollars or pounds, euros, wherever you are? And why is it that some have 50 followers and they're on social media every second of their life and they don't seem to be growing, but some have 50,000 followers? And it's because they found their people, they found their who, as we call them in this framework. So as soon as you want to start selling, or as soon as you want to start getting your work out into the world, it all starts to become about your who. So as an artist, you will go down a rabbit hole of making. It's about you. You're making because maybe it's a form of gratification, therapy, a hobby. It's a passion that just won't go away. And there becomes a point where you want to put it out into the world. There's no point it sitting in a drawer. And there's a potential to make a living from it. And then when you step into that, it becomes about your people, your who. And if you make work and post it on social media with no idea who you're speaking to, or you're applying to galleries without really understanding who your work is for, it's going to be really, really challenging to connect with people, because it's like standing in a hall with a million people just stood with your artwork in the air and you have no voice. And that's what social media can feel like sometimes, because there are so many great opportunities with social media, but there are so many people using it, so things get lost. And we have to elevate you up and make you stand out from the crowd, so you're not just getting lost in a sea of other artists. And the exciting thing is there is potential to connect and figure all this out, and the answers are within you. Quite often, the answers are staring you in the face, but you can't see them. And this is why we talked about resetting, because when you fill in your head with questions, this is going back to basics and the answers are there. So we will help you pull out the answers during these workshops. But I want to reiterate the point that I made in workshop 1, that your why comes first. People make the mistake of deviating from their why, especially when things happen and the world's impacted. And we can adapt, but the why comes first. Once you start to then understand your passion and then where it fits in the world with a who, an audience, you can then start to adapt the work. But I will talk about that in the next workshop. For now, we're thinking about why and who this is for. And there is a story behind every artist. So when we started to look at the why in workshop 1, we start to look at the reasons why we make art. And what we're doing now is using your one artwork to really drill down into what that artwork means. Why does it exist? And there is a story behind every artist and every artwork. And quite often, people think that they're boring or they've got nothing to share. And they think, this is just my life and this is why I make work. Why would that be interesting to anyone else? Some people think they need some big, deep academic meaning or big, deep philosophical reason why they make art. And it doesn't have to be that way. This is all about you being authentic, being yourself, and finding your people who resonate with that. But one of the biggest questions an artist gets, especially from non-art people who buy, does anyone know what the biggest question is? It's always, what inspires your work? That is one of the biggest questions artists get asked, because non-artist people, I'm sure there's a better way to refer to them, they are fascinated with the process. And when they see an artwork, they're like, wow, how does that even exist? They are so intrigued. And even I am, I've been in the creative industries for more than 15 years, and it still fascinates me how an artwork comes into being, the process that everyone takes, seeing all the work and the amazing group that we have, the pop-up group, and all the diversity and the different voices and the things that have fueled the work. It's fascinating how we all have so many differences. We're all so unique. And this is how we start to stand out from the crowd, by bringing that uniqueness, which is ourself, to the surface. And it can frighten people because you might think you don't have a story, you're boring. But any story is interesting. And it's often overlooked. And every artist has a story and every artwork has a story. So in this worksheet, that's what we're going to be doing, is drawing that out of you. And I have found this before. I have seen artwork inside many groups. I've seen lots of artwork. And I've seen artwork before where I've gone, oh yeah, that's nice. And then when I've asked the artist more about it, I've suddenly gone, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So there are two things going on when we're looking at artwork. There's the aesthetics. So we'll look at something in terms of the way it looks. And we all react differently. Art is subjective. We all react differently to the way something looks because we all have different relationships with different colours, different marks, make us feel a different way. And then there's the other side of art, which is the meaning behind it. And again, we could look at an artwork and we'll all have a different feeling and a different meaning from an artwork. But what's interesting is when the artist does share that, sometimes we'll look at something and we'll just look at the aesthetics. We're missing the meaning, especially in today's world on social media where people don't have time to really think. They are just scrolling and looking. And what happens is when you do share a little bit more is you create a bigger connection with people. Annika Lee, join my group, and she has these beautiful paintings, drawings of Indian architecture and buildings. And when she started to tell me more about the history and why she's making it, and how it was all about the family coming together in these really special times that she had with her uncles and after school, I just started to see the work in a completely different way. It was incredible. And I actually thought I would love to have that on my wall, because now I understand what all that means. It's not just a row of buildings. There's so much more. And art doesn't always speak for itself, especially on social media. So remember that, especially when you're trying to sell it. So I see so many artists putting their work out into the world with no captions, no description. And you are relying on people to just like it and want to buy it based on aesthetics only, based on the way it looks. And by doing that, you're diminishing the chances in this connection, because art is an emotional response in people. And everyday people don't really understand art. I'm generalizing here, a lot do, but there are a lot of people that don't. So we have to help them. And as we go down a rabbit hole of making as artists, it is difficult to see the next steps and to explain more. Sometimes we don't understand why we made it. But it is this uniqueness in each of us and this authenticity that we have that makes us different to everyone else. So when you start to tap into that, your why, that's what makes you stand out. David Bowie has this great quote, and he says, "I think it's terribly dangerous for an artist to fulfill other people's expectations. I think they generally produce their worst work when they do that. Always remember that the reason that you initially started working was there was something inside yourself that you felt if you could manifest it in some way, you would understand more about yourself and how you coexist with the rest of society." And I love that, because it really is true that why is the piece that holds the connection with other people, the passion. It makes us unique, and it will make you stand out. And then when you start to want to create captions on social media and talk about your work in person and approach galleries, what we're doing today in this workshop and in the worksheet will help with all of that. It's easy to think that if you just put your work out into the world, someone will see it and you'll get that lucky break, but it doesn't happen like that. It's a dangerous assumption to make, because I used to feel this way. And I also used to think that my work was for everyone. In fact, people used to say to me, "Who do you work for?" And I say, well, it's for anyone who likes art, but it isn't the case. And one of my favorite quotes when you're starting to market yourself and put your work out there is, "If you speak to everyone, you'll speak to no one." And it's so, so true. So what we're doing here is helping you connect to the person that you are, the art that you're making, and to be able to express that. You'll learn more about yourself and more about your art, and you'll be able to write meaningful captions that attract people. This will also help you write individual work statements. If you don't know what that is, don't worry yet, but it will help you create statements and talk about your work and write about your work, and also help you create hashtags that are meaningful. So this is so powerful, what I'm going to teach you in this lesson and during the worksheet. So action 1 is to bring that one chosen artwork. And there's a worksheet attached to this lesson that you have all been sent. And there's a series of questions that I want you to answer about your work and the reason that you made it and what it actually is. And don't worry about spelling and grammar at this point. Just pour it out of yourself. Really keep asking yourself questions and why. Because the more you start to pull out at this stage, the better. You'll have a better understanding. It will help you in so many ways, and you will light the fire of passion again. And you'll also start to get gold nuggets of information from the questions. And it's about not being distracted by other people's opinions at this stage. Everyone will have an opinion on what direction you should go in, and you should paint this or you should do this. There's no market for that. I promise you, when you start to do this, you will find your place. So be careful of other people's opinions at this stage. Just really tap into, finding your own voice, finding your own people. Because I could put 100 artworks in a row and ask people their opinion, and everyone will have a different opinion. Everyone will have a different story about why that one wouldn't work and why that one would work. So if you're a beginner, this might be overwhelming. So just break it down and work through the sheets. And if you can't answer any of the questions, don't panic. Don't think, I can't answer this, so it means that there's not a place for me. That's not the case. It's just, it takes a while. It takes a long time to process all of this. And I'm here to really introduce you to this framework. You will start to see, oh my gosh, yes, I've figured this out, but this whole thing is a long, long process. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. And don't think you've got to have big, deep, meaningful responses. Also, things might come out that are personal because, well, let's face it, we do all have deep-rooted reasons why we're making art. And so some personal things might come up for you. Process that. You don't have to share everything with the world about why you make art. Tapping into this can be so, so helpful though, but you don't have to share everything. Knowing it and understanding it will help. You don't have to go into big, big detail. This will also help if you are interested in working with galleries, because galleries will want to know more about your work. This will prepare you for approaching galleries and approaching other people. So the next ingredient is the what. The what ingredient is basically what you produce as an artist. It's basically your portfolio of work, or if you sell art courses, it's the services and goods that you provide. It's your what it actually is. And because we haven't got long together during these workshops, I am asking you to just bring one artwork in. So the what for now is just that one artwork. And I will talk more in the next workshop about how all of this comes together when you do have multiple pieces. So don't jump ahead yet asking, but what if I've got this work and this work? Trust me in this process and just work through the steps one by one, and we will get to those answers in the next workshop. But your what is basically the work that you're putting out into the world, both in the physical sense and your artistic voice. So your artistic voice is the way you use colour and marks, the subject matter. And so inside the worksheets, there are also questions to ask you to describe your artwork. And it might seem simple, but I want you to just describe your artwork to someone as if they can't see it, using describing words. Simply stating, first of all, is it a painting? Is it a sculpture? Is it a collage? And don't skip this step because it seems really basic, but this is going to give you clues to who your work is for, and captions and hashtags. So try and use descriptive words where possible, but again, don't put pressure on yourself. And if you're really struggling to be able to describe your work, because sometimes you are so close as the artist when you've made it, it's difficult to step back sometimes and see these answers. So ask for help, bring your artwork into the group and ask people how it makes them feel and how they would describe it. I love the workshops when we bring everyone together, because this is where people start bouncing ideas off each other. It's incredible. So bring them into the group and ask for help. When you start really looking at the visual language, and visual language is simply just the marks that we make, the colours that we use, it's how we describe things in a visual way, using visual language as an art form. And when you start to really look at the differences, for example, you might say, I'm an abstract artist, and that's very, very broad. When you start to compare abstract artworks, you could have one that's blue, blended, soft, serene, cool, calm. And then another abstract, which is saturated colours, bright, hard lines, energetic. And they are two very different people. They are going to appeal to two very different people. So when you start to describe your work, you will start to come out with words of who these people are. People who want calm and quiet, and people who want energy and then more colourful. And so some of this seems simple, and some of the answers, I will warn you, you'll think this is just too easy, because it usually is. The answers, we often think this is much more complex than it is. And the answers are usually staring at you in the face, and we cloud our heads with so much noise that it is usually very, very simple. So in the worksheet, there is also some questions about what your work is, and to just simply write down the descriptive words. Think about the size, think about whether it's realistic or is it more abstract. Think about calm, bold. And what we're doing here is, when you do use the descriptive words, when you do come to write your captions and your bio and your statement, you will have a wider vocabulary to explain and describe your work. And it's not about using academic, fluffy stuff that doesn't make any sense to anyone, which I see a lot of people feel like they have to do to prove themselves. It's not that at all. It's about being authentic. And maybe there is a word that you can use to describe your work. And what we're doing here is pulling this out of you so that you can connect through your work in a visual way and also in a written and spoken way, because it all helps. So the next ingredient, the who, this is who your people are. And it's not just your buyers. Your buyers obviously are an important part of this. So potential buyers and people who would buy your artwork make up a big portion of the who. But your who is also about companies, art organisations, other artists. It's really opening your mind to the possibilities, because in today's world, there are so many people that need artists. And we often go to what we know. We often go to the galleries or locally and start there. And actually, there is a big demand for people working with artists who are not in the art world. Owen Garrett is a great example of this. He collaborated with an oil company and supplied their oil company with artwork that they could give their clients and their employees. So when you start to do this work in the worksheet, you will start to see how your why and your what, when you start to really describe what it is and really think about it, you'll start to relate that to people. And this part, you really want to open your mind. It's not just anyone in the art world. At this stage, we're being open-minded and coming up with crazy ideas that might make you feel out of your comfort zone. But in this time on social media, there are people looking for opportunities, and there is a great opportunity to connect with people on social media, because all companies, galleries, artists are using social media. We've looked at the stats, everyone is on social media. So when you start to really get clear on the direction that you want to go in, you can start to approach people and connect with people. And this can be hard to grasp. And if this is new to you, it can be like, oh my gosh. So just break it down and don't try and answer questions such as, but how could I collaborate with those people? Or how could it work? At this stage, just come up with the ideas, because we'll go over how later in the workshops. So when we think about why people buy art, it is because they have an emotional response to it. It evokes a memory or a feeling in someone. Your work isn't just a canvas with some paint on it or ceramic that's been shaped. There is meaning behind it. And what your work means to you might not mean to someone else. So we're discovering that through these workshops. And by doing this framework and filling in the worksheets, you will be creating more desire, because when you create that emotional connection and when you start to think about the reasons people do engage with your work, this is where you can start to talk about that more. And a lot of people don't realize that your people are usually like you. They are people who have the same beliefs and same interests as you. So when you start to look at your why, your what, and then your purpose, which I'm going to talk more about next week. So the purpose of your art, which I have asked inside the worksheet, is basically, what is the artwork intended to be used for? Is it to go on the wall, or is it to go on a notebook, or is it a gift? Don't worry too much about that question yet, because we will explore that more in the next workshop. But those are the 3 things usually that help create the connection between your people and create that desire for what you have. And it's exciting because you can carve out your own place in the world. We have so much potential on social media. And like attracts like. So when you start to use social media and get clear on who you're speaking to and getting clear on what your work means, when you start to write captions that are more meaningful and you have a website that explains more about your art and yourself, you'll attract the people that understand what you do. Rather than no connection at all, people will just sail by and you'll go overlooked. And if you don't have a following on social media yet, this is a great time to start, because quality beats quantity. There is no point having 50,000 followers on social media if they're not your people, if they're not engaging with your posts or really interested in what you're making. So this whole process will help you start to gain quality followers, people who are actually interested. And start small and grow gradually. Sharon, who I talked about in workshop 1, has only got, I know it sounds a lot to some people, 2,000 followers. But in today's world, that isn't a huge amount. And she made $20,000, the equivalent of $20,000 during the pandemic over an 8-week period. And we have artists inside the hub that have 800 followers, and they're making a living from that amount of followers because they have a quality following. So it isn't about big, crazy numbers on social media. It's about quality and engaging people, which is what this is all going to help you with. And something interesting that I discovered about your who is you are in control of who you attract, and you can actually choose who you attract. I thought this was a really interesting concept. And actually, when I look back, when I worked for big companies, they all do this. They create a customer profile where they describe the customer as if they exist. And someone reminded me of this when I set up United Art Space. It was Beth Kempton that reminded me. She's the creator of Make Art That Sells. And she said, you can decide who you want in your world and who you want following you. And I wrote a profile of the kind of person that I would like to attract into United Art Space. And I wrote a male version and a female version. And I started to attract that kind of person. And what happens is when you do that, you start to speak to that person. So all of your posts then become about what it is you're doing. And you're no longer just writing to nobody. You are writing to attract people, and like does attract like. So you will start to see that you have the power to attract people. And sometimes you don't know who you want to attract. So this is why the worksheets inside this lesson will help you start to figure this out. Who do I want in my world? Who could I collaborate with? Who could I work with? And it does take time. So please trust the process and work through it. Take your time, ask questions. It doesn't happen overnight. There will be some people that have aha moments faster than you because maybe they are already a bit further along. You know, everyone's at a different stage. But if you can't answer any of the questions, don't think it's because this isn't possible for you. It absolutely is. On social media, when you want to start selling and creating opportunities, it is all about building relationships. So this is what this is going to help you with. This framework will help you build those relationships. If you want to approach a gallery, they will and apply for a grant. It all comes from the why. We have hub members inside my membership who have worked on this process. I've had one member who's just had a $10,000 grant, another artist that's used this and now has 20 commissions. And it all comes from digging into your why. When you approach a gallery, they will want to know, what is your work about? So this will help you prepare for those conversations. And usually we don't do this alone. When you look at successful artists, they work together. And that's why I've created this platform, because we are stronger together. People lift each other up and share opportunities. Other companies will want to invest in you and help you. And it all comes from this, from digging into these questions that I'm sharing. So don't skip the steps. So inside the worksheet, you will also then have questions to start thinking about who your people are, and just keep an open mind about the possibilities. And what I will say is, when you start to answer the questions, pull out the keywords and do a bit of research. Go and look for companies. If you're really stuck and think, I just don't know, get on Google and start having a look. And you'll be surprised the connection sometimes between your work and people or organizations that you'd never considered before. On Friday, I will share with you some previous responses from people who've taken this workshop before, to show you how they've answered the questions and what it led for them. So sometimes it helps to just see how other people have worked through this and what answers they came up with, because if it is new to you, it's sometimes difficult. The answers are there, but you have to do a little bit of prodding to get these out of you sometimes. So keep an open mind. Don't feel the fear. You write some companies down and it might scare the life out of you. You might think, how on earth could little me ever work with a big company like that? Don't let the fear take over at this stage. Don't try and fill in the gaps of how. Come up with the ideas. Because remember in workshop 1, where I talked about the red car, when you start to look at the opportunities and look at the potential and start to look at potential companies and organizations, you will start to, by default, see things. You'll see links on social media that have always been there, but all of a sudden you're tapped into it. So this is what you'll be doing through this worksheet, is bringing things into your conscious, and you'll start to see opportunities that were always there, but now you're seeing them. I want you to feel excited about the possibilities and the opportunities that are there, because we've got one life. And when you start to unlock this and you can become the artist that you just never knew was possible, using this framework, I've worked with so many people that have actually thought it was about their artwork, but they've gone on to create communities of their own, creating workshops. You just don't know where this will take you. It's great. Look where it took me. It took me here to sitting with you today, creating United Art Space. So that's it in a nutshell. It's all about your who when you want to start getting people into the world. So there is the one worksheet to download, which breaks the question down into your why, into what it is, and to who this could be for. Thinking out of the box, not just in terms of people who will buy, you've got to think of that, of course, but who could I collaborate with? Who else would be interested in what I'm doing? Relate it to why you're making and what it actually is. Thinking about that language. Is it bold? Is it for calm people? Is it for vibrant people? Or is it for people that like dogs? Or is it, there's so many possibilities. So what you are learning here is the steps to get really closer to who your people are and how you can stand out from the crowd and connect with them. So even if you are a beginner or more advanced, what you're working through here is a plan to start to get in front of your people. So I don't want you to think that you're not good enough. It's easy to compare yourself to other people who are maybe at a different stage to you. We all work at different stages and different paces. And for some of us, the why is more deep-rooted than other people. So this process, people ask me, how long does it take? And it's impossible to answer because we all have different motivations, reasons. You have to work through it and concentrate on your voice and your people. And there is never a better time than now. The sooner you can start working on this, the more progress you'll make. I've worked with people who joined, I shared in the group yesterday, Chris, she wanted to paint cats and she painted a cat and it's quite flat, it had no depth. It was fine, but she said, I really want to paint it so it looks more realistic. And she joined feeling a bit out of her depth and comparing herself to other people. And I showed the transformation in her artwork in just 1 year after focusing down on what she really wanted to do. And the transformation was incredible. So don't get too disheartened if you're looking at the stage you're at now, because if you focus on this, you can make progress. And keeping it really simple, the more simplified you can keep all of this, the faster you will make progress and build momentum. So keep that in mind. Don't compare your stage to someone else's stage. Maybe they're 20 years ahead of you. Focus on where you are at now. Be kind to yourself. Start today and take baby steps or big strides if you are on a mission. We have inside the hub, the membership that I run, we have hub turtles because they take their time. They for them to work through this and really become the artists that they dream is so important. And then we have the hub hares who are taking it on and going, yes, I'm going to find my people now. And then they're on social media and they're doing all the things and they're seeing the success. And success is different to everyone, isn't it? So I have people in my membership that are really working on their voice and taking their time to make authentic work. And to them, that is becoming the person that they really want to be. And that's just amazing. So what you are learning here is how to put all this into practice. And just keep moving, taking those next steps forward. So it's not about having a quick win and overnight success. We are working through these steps and you will start to build. So that's it. I am going to check the comments. And oh yeah, before I move into the comments, I just want to talk to you about what we're going to be doing in the next video. So once you've filled in the worksheet today, in the next video, what we'll start to do is look at how all this fits together, and especially when you have additional work. So we're looking at one piece of artwork for now, and then I know most of you will have more than one artwork that you want to sell. So this process will help you see how this all fits together. And it will help you see the mistakes that you're making and how you can build a really strong portfolio. So that's what I'm going to be sharing in the next video, is how you start to build this out to be a collection of work and how you can start to use that on social media. And that will be next Monday. So you've got plenty of time to dig into these questions. Let me know in the comments how you found this video, and please share it with anyone who you think would benefit from it too. And I will be back tomorrow to do a live Q&A. Hello, everyone. Hello, Brenda. I think, oh, the comments are moving so fast. I'm more of a butterfly. I flip from, it's gone, because the comments are coming in so fast. I think what you were saying there, and it's gone, is that you flipped from thing to thing. And I hear this from a lot of people, so let me quickly talk about this. I've seen lots of people saying, I don't want to be boxed. I like to make lots and lots of different artworks. I like different mediums. I like different subjects. and no one's going to box you in. And at the moment, try not to think too much about that, because I'll talk about that in the next workshop. I really want you to focus on this next stage of what the work means and why you made it, and finding your people related to that, because then all those questions will make more sense. But what happens, and this is, I'm jumping ahead a little bit now to the next workshop, in a tiny, tiny nutshell, is what you're doing is looking for a thread within your work. It doesn't mean that you can't create lots and lots of different subject matter, and it doesn't mean that you can't create lots of different mediums, but we're looking for a thread, and that's what I will help you with, is looking for this thread that ties your work together, that relates to people. And what we'll start to do is look at your work, because if it is for lots of different people, I can help you with that. So don't jump ahead too much now thinking about all the different types of styles and things that you've got, because it will stop you from making progress now. And that's what you want to be focusing right now. Forget all the questions, work on this sheet and trust the process. And it will all start to make sense. And I have some exciting news to share next week about that. If you are all over the place, how you can still do all those things, but reach your people. Camille, hello. I found that comparing myself or my work to that of other artists is a futile act. There is no one like me or like you. Yeah, so anything we do or create is unique, and there will be buyers who resonate with me. There will be. And the trick is to believe in yourself. It really is, because when you start to work through this process, and I've seen this happen inside my hub membership, people start the process and they're terrified that no one will like what they do. But when they start to work through this and they create more meaningful captions, and we do a lot of work to start to use social media to attract the right people, people start to come. And they go, oh my gosh, people are starting to engage with my posts and they like it. And I've just had Polly recently, she's never sold anything before, and she was terrified to put her work on social media. And, you know, using this framework, she realized that it was a mindset. She didn't know that. She said, I felt fine, but I've realized I was getting in my own way. And she's just had 3 big commissions, and she's a single parent with 3 kids. And she just said it is totally, that money in the bank now has helped massively during this time. And Simone is another one of my members, and she said the same thing. By just working through this and breaking down the steps, it was all so muddled before, and she again has put her work on social media. This is no lie. She's sold out 3 of her collections. I mean, I think it's like 20 pieces now, and it's phenomenal. So when you start this process, find your voice, find your people. I always bring it back to that. If you're feeling overwhelmed, bring it back to that, because that is, in a nutshell, what you're doing. Finding your own voice and finding your people. And there's never a better time to start. So when you start to attract them, then you start to engage with them. And the next steps then, you know, is converting them. I'm not going to talk about that now, but these are the stages that we take. And you don't need that many people. This is the exciting thing. It really is quality over quantity. Finding your people and realizing who they are and getting in front of them. You know, success, as I said before, is no accident. We create our own success. And when we start to find out the meaning of our work and who would be interested in it, and we start to follow those different companies and put ourselves in the worlds of these other people, our perspective of the world changes. If you're in a world where maybe you've been impacted financially and other artists around you are not making any money from their art, and you're just seeing bad news everywhere, it is really difficult to see the opportunities. You do start to think, well, how am I ever going to make this happen? No one else is. What you're not seeing is the people who are. There are worlds of people who are making a great living and selling their artwork on social media in the thousands to people that have never seen it before. It is happening, but we have our own little perspective based on the world that we live in, based on the people that we associate with, based on our experiences, and based on the other people's experiences that we see. And when you start to do this exercise, you will start to create your own world, your own little bubble, and you'll start to see other artists that are doing it. And you'll start to attract people who really appreciate what you're doing and understand, and they'll give you a nice comment and it boosts you. And you'll start to have people say, how much is your artwork? And you'll start to see the worth in what you're doing. And it grows and grows from there. And this works for people at all stages. So like Sharon, she's been a full-time artist for 25 years and still uses this all the time to keep working through the steps. Because also one thing about this is it's not static. You don't just work through this once and then that's it, you've got all the answers. You're evolving as an artist all the time. The world is changing all the time. Look at the situation we're in now with the pandemic. It's totally turned everything upside down. You'll have things in life that happen. And this is what the Hub members say, is they come back to this framework all the time to check in with where they need to focus. So even if you have been selling and you're an established artist and you've been an artist for a long time, this is still the framework that you will use to check in. And there is never enough to be said about connecting with your why and bringing this to the surface and creating meaningful posts and understanding more about your people and how to speak with them. So that's it for this one. And then we'll talk about more how it all fits together in the next workshop. Kate's asking, can I share the groups? Yes, and where you can post art and ask. Yes, sure. If you're signed up and the link is at the top, you'll get all the information sent to you there, but I can send you the link. But if you're on the list, which I advise you to do because you'll get all the worksheets and everything summarized that I've spoken about today, and you will also get access to the group that I have created where I think there's nearly 2,000 artists and they're now all getting to know each other. It's great. And so Anne is saying, how do you work out what companies to look at? So basically you're looking at, you've got to answer the questions in the worksheet. So answer the questions in the worksheet and then you will start to come up with the ideas. And if you are stuck, then come into the group and ask for help. But all of this, the questions that I've given you in the worksheet will start to delve you into the answers. So that's what you need to do, is go to the worksheet. Les, an old turtle. Les was my first ever Hub member when I founded the Hub, the online Hub. I'm a turtle as well. I like to take my time. Let me see if there's any other questions before I head off. Helen saying, I started to do the same thing 3 weeks ago and I look at their work and make genuine comments. Yes, wonderful. Bev says, thank you, we need you in our heads 24/7 to keep reminding us. Well, that's why I did form the Hub, so everyone inside the Hub has access to me and my brain. Dermot's asking, I started posting every day about 2 weeks ago and putting in hashtags. How should I interact with people who only like? So we're going to cover that next workshop. So at this point, just really dig into all the golden nuggets. Don't overlook this process. It might seem simple. You might seem like, I'm just answering really basic questions here. How is this going to help me sell? Lots of people want to jump to the how, and they want me to jump to the how. You want me to go, just tell me how I sell on social media. Just tell me how to price right now. I want the answers, and I can see it in everyone. But it is the mistake that people make, because these steps, I promise you, will lead to more engagement, more quality leads, more people who really, really, like what you do. But the more you can explain your work as well and talk about it with confidence, and this is one thing I will say, this will bring you more confidence and the clarity around what it is that you do. And when you can explain that to people and to galleries and to other people in companies and organizations, they'll listen and go, wow, I'm interested in this. I get what you're saying. I get where your art is coming from. But if you're coming from a place I would just make art because I like it, just has no connection. So this will help so much. And I had a great question the other day saying, but should I adapt my work for what sells? It's dangerous to do that, because one thing, you're deviating from your strengths. When you tap into your why, art is a language and you are creating your own artistic voice. And so the more authentic you are and the more you tap into your strengths as an artist and this uniqueness that you have, the more that will stand you apart from other artists. Once you start to figure out that part of why, and then what your work is and who it's for, you can then go back and start to tweak. But this is jumping ahead again. So there are some steps that you can take further down the line to help you tweak your work. So for example, Sharon tweaked her work during the pandemic because she saw a change in buying habits on social media. But it was, again, using this framework. You have to work through the steps in order. So Mary saying, I hear the term collaborate thrown around a lot. What does that actually mean? Great question. Thank you, Mary. So collaborate is a very, very broad term, but it does generally mean two people coming together with a common interest and working together in some way. That is it in the general sense. And collaboration can be really useful when you're an artist and you haven't got any following, but you recognize there is a company or an organization or another artist or an influencer. An influencer is someone with a big following, could be a magazine, and you collaborate in some way because they have access to your people. And what they're doing is raising your profile. So they will share your work. Maybe it's in a magazine, they might write an article about you, and they will share that in front of their people. And all of a sudden your profile has been shown in front of a bigger audience. But it's quality, it's people who are connected with, who would be interested. Collaborations can be with other artists as well. Sharon Griffin, I talk about her a lot, but she is collaborating with another artist. They have the same thread, the same interests, and they're making work together. They both have different audiences, so they're now both sharing. And there could be other ways you could collaborate, such as Drew Brophy goes to live events and does live painting sessions, and he gets paid to do those. And he goes to the events that have a relationship to the work that he's making. But there are also, Marita is an artist inside my hub, and she makes beautiful ceramic pieces, and they are functional pieces, teacups, saucers, beautiful. And when she started to do this exercise, she realized that, you know, she could go to the ceramicist fairs and places like that, but also there's a link there with tea companies and people who drink tea. And so this is where it all starts to get quite exciting, when you start to think out the box and you start to think, what is my work? And then you start to see relationships between other places. It's not always about just the art world, and that's what's exciting in today's world. Other companies want to create interest for their people. So there could be a big company that relates to your artwork that might feature you in their company newsletter, or bring you in, or you know, or like Owen Garrett, start to sell your artwork to give as gifts. So many opportunities. So collaboration is a broad term, but that is what it means in a nutshell. It's how you can work with another person, and collaboration always comes because there's a connection between the why and the what. There's always a connection between your beliefs or your values or what the work actually is, and people understand it and they connect with it and they go, yeah, I'd like to work with you. So digging into all of this will help so much, and I'm so excited for you all. Pedro saying, can you please let me know some of the companies? That is your job. So you need to fill in the worksheets and come up with the ideas based on what your art is. And if you are really struggling, bring it into the group and ask for some help over there. Oslam is saying that I sometimes struggle with anxiety and this becomes overwhelming. Yeah, so sometimes on social media it can be. I did a video on that, so I will share it with you in the comments when I finish this. I'm just seeing if there's any other comments. Oh, lovely seeing all your comments. I'm going to come back, guys, and reply to them all. It's lovely to see you all here. Yeah, Sharon's success, hi Linley, is amazing because she came from, you know, virtually nothing. And there's lots and lots of amazing stories I'm going to be sharing with you very soon from the Hub members as well, because they're having so much success using this. It really is so impactful. Rebecca's here. Rebecca's one of our members. Yeah. Rebecca joined in January. I've figured out what to focus on, and my art has really started looking more consistent. It has. So proud of you, Rebecca. So, right, okay. I'm going to head. I'm going to head and work through the comments. So please leave questions. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, and I will be back tomorrow for a Q&A session, so you can ask me any questions. Friday, I'll be here to show you some examples. So show you some examples of the work, the answers, and what that might mean in terms of collaboration and all these things that I've talked about today. And then you've got the weekend to delve into this deeper, ask inside the group. If you're not signed up, the link is at the top. And I think I've covered everything. The next workshop will be Monday. And of course, I will send you the details and the links for that, because that will help you start to piece all of this together. So have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will catch you all soon. Take care.